was your Saturday morning?
Yeah, not too bad. So I'm staying in a friend's place who's gone to Turkey before I finally move into my room in London. Yeah, just made chai for myself. It's going well. Yeah.
Mm. You're working with the UK civil service now,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right? And what are you doing?
So I work as now I'm going to start working as a strategy and a policy advisor, which means I don't have much information because they don't tend to give much information before you start. But for my previous role, what I used to do is so UK has a railway technology which is very much pretty much similar in India, which is when the trains stop, you use that red flag, if you remember, for trains to be stopped. And then they replaced that with the red, green, and the yellow light.
Mm.
But UK was actually trying to push a case for digital signaling, which Japan and a lot of countries in Europe uses. So they use a lot of evidence to sort of pitch to the government and say that different governments across UK to say that this is more effective, more efficient. So that's what I did previously across the country. And
Mm.
now I am going to work on a very specific part in the country, York, Manchester, and one more place in the north, where I'm going to push the case for this. But this time I'm going to push a business case, as in I'm going to look into the finances and
Okay.
create a strategy around how it's going to be more efficient this time.
Okay. Sounds very interesting. Are you excited about it?
I am a little excited, but I know it can also get like boring for me after a while.
Mhm.
So I really hope like we don't reach there.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah,
Or at least you keep finding new things.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'll give you a little background, even though I've told you some bits, but essentially the podcast is called Paani with People.
Mm,
Um, and it's a play on other chat shows which host coffee with other people. So the idea, I think Pani is my favorite drink. I just love the fact that it doesn't have a taste, it doesn't have any color. It's just so simple, which
yeah.
is what I like about people as well, is
Mm,
that they don't have to be celebrities for you to want to have a conversation with them or want to hear the stories.
yeah.
And that is what I'm trying to do with this, is just hear stories of different people who are not necessarily celebrities, but people who other people think are very interesting, which is where the recommendations come. So
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Kanika. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
Kanika.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah, Kanika was the first person that I talked to. Then she referred me to Manzer, and
yeah.
Manzer obviously referred me to you. And
I'm
so,
sorry that I kept you on hold for so long.
that's
I'm
okay.
trying to like fix my
I,
situation here.
I imagine it takes time. That's
Yeah.
okay. Don't worry about it. So yes, and there's no structure to it. It's just a half an hour, 45 minutes conversation that we'll have, getting to know more about you, who you are, what you like, just anything that you'd like to share.
Mm,
So yeah, that is where we are. Why don't we begin with Manzar?
yeah.
Uh, what's that like, being married?
Yeah. So while growing up, of course, like I had the traditional idea of a marriage, you get married to get more stability into your life in terms of, like you're living with your parents and then you move out and then you go to this new place where you become your whole self, where the new identity, which is your actual identity, kind of starts for you. And that was like the perception that I was brought up with. So I was always looking forward to, getting married to somebody, of course, like I adored and loved, which did not definitely mean that, I would be in a love marriage. But then, so Manzar was a friend. Manzar was a very good friend. We met through Quora. He had answered a question on Quora, which became really viral. And then, there were articles in that question. And I thought, okay, who's this guy? His first name is Sayed. So he looks like he's from the community. And I also had my own notions about the community. So I was like, okay, let me just break those myths and like reach out to him. And that's when I reached out and we got talking. But I always in my head knew that, he was not somebody that I could marry. One, he was younger, and two, he was not from my community. So we tend to marry within our community. And that was the last thing I wanted to do to my parents. But we became very good friends for 2, 3 years. And when my parents started to look for a match for me, I was getting really disappointed from all the matches that were coming through. Um, In my head, I knew that I had certain ideals. I had a critical bent of mind, even though I can't put a finger saying that, I was a feminist, or this is what my ideology was, and this is what I believed in. This is patriarchy. This is not what I want to adhere to. But in my head, because of the critical bent of mind, I did repel a lot of those things. And I actually asked Manzer out. I was like, do you think that we can get, no, okay, what actually happened was my dad was able to find a Kashmiri match for me in Mumbai, and Manzer was in Mumbai at that point of time. So I asked Manzer if he could have a look at that guy, and if he could see like his background and all of that. And he very, in a very joking, like a jokey way, he said that, why don't we get married? And he was really young. He was like 23, 24 at that point of time. And I was like,
And
oh,
how
are
old
you,
were you?
I think I was 27, 26, 27. Like I'm 3 years elder to him.
Right.
So I was like, oh, he's so funny. Like, why would he even say that? We're not a match. But then I actually, when I went back, I reflected and I was like, I wouldn't be able to find a better partner than him, because, like he has all these good qualities as a friend which qualify for a great husband. But it's just that I'm not able to see that. So I approached him. I was like, listen, I gave it a thought. Do you want to go ahead with that? And he was like, no, I was just kidding. And then all of that, like that kept on like ongoing for a while. And he was at TIS and he was getting a lot of attention at TIS. He was also like studying. So of
Mm.
course, like he didn't have me in his mind. But then I was like, listen, okay, let's do one thing, because this has become so awkward. Let's just cut off, and like, I'll do my own thing. You'll do your own thing. And that's when he realized that he didn't want to cut off. And sorry, I digressed a lot, but I was saying, like, yeah, being married to Manzar, that's when I realized that, I had an identity different from what I had assumed for myself. Um, I could then figure out my life in a much better way, the way I wanted it to be, not the way my parents or my grandparents or the society wanted it to be. So even though like it sounds really weird and ridiculous for me to say that he allowed me to be in a space where I could have, where I found myself, but that's what he actually did. My father always believed that he passed on my baton from one man to the other man. And I would say Manzar made use of that. He was like, okay, the baton is with me now. You take it and you do whatever. So yeah, I would say like it's been wonderful being married to him, and it's even to this date. I think it's going to be 5 or 6 years this year. Even to this date, I feel like there's no sort of a contract between us. Like we're not married in a very traditional manner. We allow each other to be, and we are a result of that relationship. Our choices are a result of that relationship. Yeah.
That sounds beautiful. What's it like to meet people for marriage? Like I'm at that stage of life where my parents are constantly now talking about getting married at some point, and I've told them, wait another 2 years, but I know that it's coming at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen organically for me, at some point I'd have to think of meeting people.
Yeah.
How does that feel? What's that experience like?
So as of I can't speak for men, but as a woman, it was a really terrible experience for me. So it was also a time when I was preparing for a bank exam, and I had decided that that's what I want to do ahead. So I was also like too much into studies, and my father was also like getting these matches, and then they would have ridiculous demands. For example, there was this matchmaker who came to our house, and he was like, "Can you walk for me?"
What?
And yeah, he was like, "Can you walk for me?" And I think I was 26 back then. I walked. And I didn't think like it was a beautiful walk or something, because it was a normal walk. And he said, "Oh, she is perfectly capable of walking." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like he was seeing like whether I had any sort of physical disadvantages, disabilities. He was trying to see that. And then he also said she's very young for marriage, because in Kashmir people tend to marry late. So he also said she's very young for marriage. And then he made comments like that. And also, I've had instances, where the guy's family said, we're coming over to yours to have a look at, for the guy and the girl to meet each other, or the families to meet. And they never showed up. Like, imagine me being all decked up and they didn't show up, and we're calling the matchmaker and he's not answering for hours altogether. And even though I was not attached to them in any sort of way, but it was bad for my self-esteem. I was like, did I do anything wrong that they're not showing up? So that also happened. And then I think I became so desperate in the process, because like you get rejections after rejections, you reject one after the other. I think there was this guy who was completely not a match I mean, my parents could see that he's not a match for me. But I was like, मैं कर लूंगी. I will change myself. And my parents are like, who are not very progressive, by the way, but my parents are like, this is a lifetime decision. You shouldn't be saying that. And at that point, I actually questioned myself. I was like, why would I let anyone walk over me? So I think I should take a break from this and then like start thinking about if I really want to get married in this. But it was terrible for me because you are oh, I forgot to tell you, there was this matchmaker who actually came to my place and he was like, we have 8 to 9 criterias based on which we suggest matches. And then he started, oh my God, he gave me those 8 criterias. It was one, how big is your house? Two, how far is it from the main road? Three, how much bigger is your path, like the path which leads from your door to the gate? How big is your garden? What does your dad do? What does your mom do? Are they into government employment or are they private employees? What do you do? So all these ridiculous, like demands which would make you feel like bad about yourself because you're also assessing yourself on those terms then. And then I also had this match. Basically, a matchmaker came with his diary and he was like, you're too choosy. Like, you're not able to like find yourself a good match. Here, take my diary and see what you want. And then I go to the diary and one of the rishtas actually says, this is the guy, this is what he does, these are the relatives, all of that, which is fine. It is a standard way of matchmaking. But at the bottom, it says, one canal land in this area, one ATM in this area, one hotel in this area. I was like, oh my God, do I also need to like have all of that? Because I don't. So yeah, it was a very interesting time, but also a ridiculous time. Honestly, like I wouldn't wish this on anyone, any woman specifically.
Wow. So I don't have a rosy picture of it. It
I would
sounds
wish, I would wish organic beginnings for you.
it sounds so weird because I've always been like in the last few years. In fact, the kind of community that we exist in, we've been surrounded by such progressive people
Yeah,
that these thoughts seem very distant. ऐसे
yeah,
लगता है ये तो गाँव में होता होगा. But then these things happen so close to you,
yeah,
and they're ridiculous the
yeah,
way they do, and that you have to subscribe to it. That
yeah,
there's no choice that you
yeah,
get, especially for women, that you barely get a choice to make. But I'm glad it worked out for you well. How did
yeah.
your parents react to your choice with Manzer?
So surprisingly, my parents have always been pushy on a lot of my choices. But with Manzar, initially my dad was, of course, like, no, we can't. And I don't want to be the first one. Like, I
Mm.
gave you all this education. I, gave you all this freedom, not for people to come back at me and say that this is a result of your decisions. So initially he did say no. But then I asked him twice. I was like, listen, he's a very good guy. But also the problem here was that Manzar was still a student. So I knew he would get a job because he was in his final year then. But then also like to pitch something to your parents which is not fully established as of now was a difficult choice for me. But so, and then my dad said no, and then Manzar's parents also spoke to my dad, and he also kind of he kept that on hold. Which was like I would say, which was not very pleasing for Manzar as well because his parents had spoken now, and he needed an answer, even if it was a no. And then Manzar decided to visit my parents, all by himself. So he was, like I said, he was a TIS. I had just started working. Both of us did not have the money to get him to Kashmir in a way which was comfortable for him. So I remember he took a government bus, like a public bus, from ISBT Kashmir, ISBT in Delhi.
Yeah.
And then that bus took like 24 to 28 hours to reach Kashmir. This is the most horrible bus I have ever known in my life, but I've traveled in that quite a few times. And then he met my dad, and my dad took him. It was Ramzan, so my dad took him home, and then he got introduced to my grandmom and my mom. So my grandmom didn't understand Urdu or Hindi, but
Mhm.
then she just kept smiling at Manzar. And I don't know what's smitten her because I never got a chance to speak to her. She died immediately after.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
sorry.
but then she just kept smiling at him and she like prepared good food for him, even though this wasn't a yes. But when my dad saw his mom being happy, he was like, okay, the decision is made. So we'll say yes. And then my parents actually traveled to his like travel all the way to Ambikapur, which is really far. It took them a lot of time to reach there. And my mom, I don't know about my dad, but my mom had never traveled in a train because we don't have trains in Kashmir. So that was the first time for my mother and my brother who went to Ambikapur. And my mother, I remember my mother calling me because Ambikapur is also like a very small city. And it also passes through a lot of villages. So my mom was like, I don't think I can get you married here because it's a village. I was like, but you don't have to like do anything with that. You just meet Manzer's parents. She was like, there's no way because it's deserted for there are stretches of lands that are just deserted. I don't see you here. And I know my mom can be quite stubborn at times, but I don't know what changed, honestly. Like, she came back and she told my dad, I think she's happy in this, and I think we should just say yes. And they said yes. All of this background that I'm giving you is something that I realized much after. They told me much after the marriage. They told
Right.
me that they didn't want to me to go to Ambikapur, but I think they agreed on time, and that's what. Yeah. So my dad, even though like there was some sort of a pushback, but I think he gave in.
That's nice. I'm glad it worked out. So
Yeah.
technically, you didn't go to Ambikapur, did you?
So actually, what happened? Manzar and I had a nikah. So how it happens usually is you have the mehendi, the nikah, the walima next day. The walima is thrown by the guy's side. But because we had nikah,
Is Walima like a reception?
yes, it's like a reception. So, but because of the distance, and also because Manzar was just starting out with his work, so we decided we'll have the nikah, and then after 2 years we'll have the reception. Even though nikah means that you're legally married, but because of the cultural practices, my dad was like, no, till you have the reception, you can't meet Manzar, which is bullshit, by the way, because you can legally, you're married. Islamically also, like Islamically, legally, you're married.
Right.
So, but anyway, so we were waiting for that reception to happen, but Oxford came through for me. So I came to Oxford with the expectation that, I'll go back and then have the reception.
Mhm.
But Manzar also got through Oxford the next year. So he had to come to Oxford. And that would mean naturally that we meet. So I think our parents gave in this process and they were like, listen, we're going to announce to the world that the reception is done, even though it wasn't done. And then they sent sweets to everybody, and then they were like, the reception is done. So Manzar is still doing his master's in Oxford, is when I decide that I need to meet his parents because it's been really long. I haven't like officially
Oh,
gone to Ambikapur. So I go back to India, I meet my parents, and then I decide to go to Ambikapur all by myself. And so I take a train, do all that jazz, reach Ambikapur, stay there for 10 days. It was a wonderful period for me. It was really hot, but it was nice. It was also, I would say it was nice because it was also surprising for a lot of people to see that, the Bahu has come without the groom.
all by herself.
So my mother-in-law threw a reception party just so that, everybody knows that this is the new daughter-in-law.
Right.
So since then, I've been to Ambikapur thrice for very small spells, like 10 days each. But I think like I am also adapting to new changes, and they are also adapting to new changes. For them to know that the daughter-in-law hasn't like I don't have a single like there's no clothing for me in Ambikapur. Of course, I have a room and all of that to myself, but because I travel so much between so many places,
Mm.
that means that I don't have a permanent wardrobe there.
Yeah.
I mean, they have allotted me a lot wardrobe, like my clothing and nothing is there. It's empty. So for them to also accommodate to that change, I would say like my mother-in-law is really brave and like changing with times, but I can't say for other relatives. And I've never heard anything, but I would say like it's a lot of change for everybody.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What a story. There's so much happening in it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Why don't you tell me a little about your community? Did you say so? Sayyid is Manzar's community. Is that the same as yours? Is that the same?
No, no. So I am Raja, and Raja basically, I mean, I don't have like deeper knowledge into this, but we are like Hindu converts. We were Rajputs
Right.
in Kashmir. But when I refer to my community, I usually say like Kashmiri community.
Okay. We'll come to Oxford.
Yeah,
That's a huge step coming
yeah.
from Kashmir to a different country altogether. Firstly, getting into Oxford is a huge thing. Manzar also said Mandir also told me that you inspired him to come to Oxford itself. So to do that yourself and then inspire other people to do it, and then with the kind of work that you're also doing with Project Edu Access and Bridge, is this very inspiring. How did that thought emerge in your mind to get
Yeah.
to Oxford?
Yeah. So, like I said, like growing up, I knew that I had a critical bent of mind, but I was not able to put a finger to that. I knew, but it was primarily because my education did not have the education institutes did not have the rigor uh, to pass me on that knowledge. I did most of my undergrad was in science. It was economics, mathematics, statistics. So while it was a good course where that would that is capable of getting you a lot of money, but it was not catering to my intellect. So I also got a job. In between that job, I was also like, यार काम तो हो रहा है पैसा तो मिल रहा है but it's not stimulating enough. And also, like, I had Kashmir in the back of my mind. So much was happening there. I was not able to like understand ho kya raha hai. The nuances of any
Hmm.
ideology is something that I was not very well versed with. And I've always wanted to do something better. And Manzer had just come out of TIS, and I had seen the kind of change it had made in him. So I could see that education institutes were capable of making that change. And I had absolutely no idea Oxford में apply कैसे करते हैं, क्या करते हैं. I had no plans. But suddenly I go on to Facebook one day and I see that one of my classmates from school was a Chevening scholar in UCL. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, how did she get there? Because I knew absolutely no one who was doing foreign education, no one. And I was like, ये तो अपनी friend है ना, like इसका कैसे हुआ? Like, you like
Yeah.
start questioning. You're like, if she could get through, then you also stand a chance to get through, right? So I started doing my research and I was like, Manzar apply karte hai saal UK mein. I knew nothing about scholarships. I
Hmm.
was like, just apply karte hai and let's see. And then I wrote applications to universities like University of Sheffield, University of Glasgow, because I was like Oxford, obviously, like Oxford the dictionary dekhi thi na, so obviously like I didn't know anything about it. So started applying and all of that. And I started getting through. I applied to IDS, Sussex, all of that. I started getting through and I was like, really, does my application have so much that they can accept me? Does it not? Do I not to be like a Newton or an Einstein to get through? So and then I had also applied to Oxford. I had applied to Chevening. I knew of no other scholarship. Chevening because my classmate went,
Right.
and I knew of no other scholarship. So I remember I came back from office, and it's just like people have just started talking about COVID. There's something like COVID. I've come back from office and I have a really bad headache. And I've decided to go back to Kashmir because COVID hone wala hai. And then
Hmm.
I remember at 7 p.m., I'm getting an email saying that, oh, you've gotten into Oxford and we're also considering you for a partial scholarship. I was like, this is unbelievable because, and in actually before this, University of Sheffield rejected me. I was like, ये तो rejection आ गई, ये तो clearly like सामने से it's a hit and a miss. कहीं कहीं होता है, कहीं कहीं नहीं होता है.
Hmm.
And then when I got through Oxford, I was like, this is too much. And I kid you not, I remember like Manzer entered through the door is when I have the phone in my hand, and I'm like, मेरा हो गया. And he's also like, कैसे हुआ? And then I vomit. I'm not kidding. I vomit. I'm like, because I also have a headache. I don't know whether that was gas or that was this. I vomit. I was like, ये कैसे हुआ? Anyway, so that happened, and then my parents were also in disbelief. Everybody is in disbelief. My friends are in disbelief because, like I said, I was very like I was quite away from the world, goes which goes to foreign university. I was like very distant from them. And then the scholarship quest began. Evening, I got the first acceptance, and then I went to interview, had the interview in Kashmir. Then I got waitlisted. So for that entire month, I was on waitlist, and I was like, "Kahan se paise lao?" My university was giving me half scholarship, but the thing is, I don't even know if you know Blavatnik, where I studied. This back then, the tuition fee itself was £45,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot. So for them to, give me a half scholarship on that, and then also like for the other half and the living stipend, it was quite a lot. And that's when I decided to crowdfund. I was like, क्योंकि मुझे पता ही नहीं थी कि मतलब I could have applied next year. Next year होगा COVID से बचेंगे नहीं बचेंगे. So there were like so many risks that I had to take. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it this year. And my parents were also like, yeah, 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 Oxford, do this year. And that's when Manzer and I decided we're going to crowdfund. At that point of time, because I told you, like, Manzer was also like initially beginning in his career. And then I was also like 2, 3 years I had worked. We had
Mm,
absolutely zero contacts to raise that amount. It was a big amount.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but within 18 days, like we set up a Milab campaign and we went all out. I also had a graphic designer, like somebody volunteered. She was like, I'm going to create posts for you. I was like, please do. And then we had a proper strategy, and then that strategy actually like worked, and then I had all the money with me. But I also used that campaign. I went back to my university and I used that campaign. I was like, listen, I've been able to uh, raise so much amount. Would you be able to like match any of it? And then they were like, okay, we'll give you 25% more. So I got more 25%. And then people came from different directions, people we didn't know, people I've never heard of, I had never heard of. Everybody was contributing to my campaign. And there were certain people, honestly, I remember this woman, she she was borderline irritating because she would call me 10 times a day. Were you able to raise anything? I was like, if she doesn't want to help me, why is she like calling me so many times? She's like, I spoke to some of the aunties in the community and each of them have gave me some amount. I have 6,000 rupees for you. And at that point, I was like, 6,000 is not going to help me. The number of calls you're making, I certainly deserve more. But I was really frustrated at that point of time. But suddenly, like when I finish my crowdfunding and I get all the amount, she calls me again and she's like, listen, do you mind coming to my house? And I'm again like very skeptical. I was like, 6,000 rupees, like she's calling me all the way to Delhi. And I was living in Noida. And then she sends me a car. I go to her house and she hands me a check of 5 lakh rupees.
Oh, wow.
And she tells me I was waiting all this while to see whether you'll be able to raise that amount. But this amount is not for your tuition, it's not for your living. This is over and about that. You also need to like explore London, see London, make sure you use it judiciously, like have fun. I was
Wow.
like, okay, wow. So people came in from different directions, and that's how Oxford happened. Yeah.
Yeah. That's inspiring. Why do you think people give to crowdfunding campaigns, especially for education?
So I think, for example, a person like me who's relatable, an average Kashmiri, or I would also say, or Indian, who studied from average schools. I wouldn't like call my school an average. That would be like misusing my privilege. But of course, like a lot of people go to convent in Srinagar, but also a lot of them do not like end up in foreign universities. So I was relatable, next door girl. And if that next door girl is telling you, I got into Oxford, like with my credentials, I got into Oxford, then probably like you all have the talent to get into Oxford. But all I need here is the tuition fee. And I think that's what helped. I remember like I was added on so many groups. People was just passing on my there were so many tweets. Oh my god, there were so many media outlets that reached my parents' house. They wanted to interview them. I mean, you'll also be able to find if you Google me, you'll be able to find my parents' interviews. They look so innocent and so naive in that. But yeah, I think it just multiplied because people probably realized that they also had it in them. I mean, if I had it in me to reach somewhere like this, they also would be able to do it. And also, they were trying to like just back me and support me. And also, like, I find it really, really hopeful. Of course, back then it was really frustrating for me, but now that I reflect, because this was literally in the middle of a pandemic. This is when the first wave had started. People were losing out on jobs and businesses. There was a lot of um, I would say like things were not clear for people, but still they were like contributing. It became, and also like everybody was like sitting at homes. They had the Twitter, and everybody was like, you know what? Let's take this girl to Oxford. Let's take her to Oxford. And then I remember the same year, I also had another Kashmiri girl who started crowdfunding after me. So crowdfunding is starting a crowdfunding is not an issue. What is an issue is how the society will perceive you. For me, that was not an issue. I was like, ऑक्सफोर्ड जाऊंगी कुछ सीखूंगी सोसाइटी तो सोसाइटी है but for her of course like for my parents were like I don't want you to go like that public because of course people will say इनके पास क्या अपने पैसे नहीं हैं मकान क्यों नहीं बेचा ये सारी चीजें क्यों नहीं की and all of that but I was like don't worry about it, it's me that's raising funds, it's not you, it's okay, just detach yourself from that idea. And then the other girl also started crowdfunding. So she's also in UK right now. She's also working in UK civil services. And then it just crowdfunding just became viral after that. Like I had
Mhm.
so many people raise funds after that. So it was, I think, like it sort of set a chain reaction, which is like very, very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds very positive.
Yeah.
My opinions about crowdfunding are very bittersweet.
Mm,
Um, because I also came to study a master's in a foreign university.
mm,
I come from social privilege. Like I'm
mhm,
a caste Brahmin man.
mm,
Even though we didn't have as much money, but
mm.
and that's my perception that if I start a crowdfunding campaign, it'd be very difficult for me to raise the funds
Yeah.
unless I, I have nothing holding me back
Mm,
in, in the society except for some bits of money,
mhm,
which is why I feel this sense of jealousy.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
क्राउडफंडिंग जहाँ मुझे लगता है कि मुझे इतना लोन लेके आना पड़ा एंड आई हैव टू पे बैक दैट मनी
mm,
जहाँ मेरे पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं था वी डिडंट हैव एनी प्रॉपर्टी सो वी हैड टू टेक एन अनसिक्योर्ड लोन व्हिच आल्सो कम्स विद अ हायर
mhm,
परसेंटेज तो मुझे कभी-कभी अनफेयर लगता है
mm,
कभी-कभी लगता है कि इट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी टू हेल्प ईच अदर फिर मुझे लगता है कि मुझे कोई क्यों नहीं हेल्प करता तो
mhm,
इट्स दिस a little disorienting for me to just imagine ki kya kya
mhm,
are things around crowdfunding. And I have found myself saying quite a few times ki why don't these people take a loan?
mhm, mhm.
I'm sorry if that is an offending question, but
No, no,
that's
it's
what that
not.
I have.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough to have an answer to it.
Yeah.
कि लोन लेने में क्या प्रॉब्लम है
Uh,
बाकी लोग भी लेते हैं
so I would say taking a loan is also a social privilege, right? You have
अच्छा
some sort of um, assurance that you'll be able to pay that loan. Now, I'm not justifying it by saying कि मेरे पास तो collateral नहीं था, मैं loan नहीं ले सकती. I could have taken a loan. But then you should also see, like, as a woman, who would pay off that loan? Like my
not
dad, at that point of time, my dad would have to put her collateral for me. And
yeah.
he in very clear terms said, I am not giving my house for this. Very clear terms. And I knew he would say that because I know him as a person. And he also said, now you're married, your in-laws due, like responsibility. So, and because I'm a feminist, I believe I'm nobody's responsibility. I'm just responsible for myself. So if the community can come together and support me, well and good. I don't have the collateral. My dad doesn't want to give me collateral. I could have forced him into getting me that collateral, but that would have been bad for my ego and my self esteem as a
Mhm.
feminist. So I would say it's not just that, it's also if my community wants to see more women like me in spaces like these spaces are usually occupied by um, people with a lot of socioeconomic privilege, right? So if people want to see like women like me come into these spaces, it's very important that you support such women, right? And I also don't say it like nahi theek hai, crowdfunding theek hai. I also come with a lot of mixed feelings. It's not like I say nahi, crowdfunding to best hai. But I also say that, the fact that this education has been made inaccessible is where we have to start. We have to like
Right.
nip that in the bud. Why is it inaccessible? And why is it only inaccessible to a certain section of the population? If I was a if I was a man, of course my father was going to like spend all his money on me, and then it would be like morally corrupt for me to start a crowdfunding. I don't say don't try go for it, but then you might have to like figure out your own whether they align with your moral values or not. You'll have to like do that. For me, of course, like um not everything was black and white. I knew that I was also able to raise a lot of money because of my identity as a Kashmiri. But also, do I do enough to serve that identity? Is also a question, right? People put in money in me because of different expectations that they had from me. For example, a lot of Indians put in money in my campaign saying that, oh, she's going to develop Kashmir. Now I know that their idea of development is very, very different from a Kashmiri's idea of development. We don't want their idea of development. A lot of Kashmiris supported me saying that our Kashmiri girls need to like have better intellectual capabilities to represent us. Am I doing that? I'm not doing that yet. So I stand at crossroads of many different ideas that had gone into like crowdfunding. But the only thing that I which like clears my conscience, like where I am like clearing my conscience, is that I know that if I was able to do it, like there are thousands of girls in Kashmir who are like, Sahreen, we also want to go to Oxford. And one of them is actually, like, we spoke of Project Edu Access, one of them is actually coming this year, who had never thought of getting into Oxford, studied in average colleges and universities in India. She got a scholarship through Oxford this year, and that is also because of the um, use of use of privilege that we made this year. And I'll tell you, sorry, I just jumped like too many things to reach there.
True.
So what we basically did through Project Edu Access was that we also advocated for widening access and participation for certain communities and people with marginalization at universities across UK. So for example, we made University of Oxford understand that you have scholarships for India, but that's not enough. You also need to see who within India needs those scholarships. For example, if you're giving this scholarship every year to a man who is Brahmin, sorry, no attacks here, but
No, of course.
you also need to see whether there's anybody from a DBA community more deserving, or a woman, like other indicators that you have. You also need to like see context-based indicators. You also need to see where in India are they coming from, what is
Yeah.
the region. Um, so as a result of that, they've started, like, there is this India Center here. You will speak to Neeraj next, and he'll also tell you. Um, they have started like having scholarships now only for certain identities, based on those identities. So, which I would say is a result of us using our privilege. We got here, we knew the struggles that we had to do. We don't want those struggles. We don't want more people to face those struggles. For example, if there was a scholarship for a Kashmiri, it would have really helped Kashmiri woman. It would have really helped me. I wouldn't have to like go door to door asking for crowdfunding. So yeah, I would say like that. Where did we start on crowdfunding? Yeah, I would say, like, it's also what you do with your privilege, but I wouldn't say all no to crowdfunding. I would say like definitely uh see like where it aligns with your moral values. But I know one more thing, Ambikesh, and I wanted to tell you. So in my year and after my year, I knew two more people who had crowdfunding. No, actually three, including the Kashmiri, and all of us had made a similar conclusion by the end of it. One, of course, people were very generous, and of course they supported us. Two, of guilt. What do we do with this now? Like,
Mhm.
we've taken so much money from the community. Are we doing enough? Of course, we're advocating for better spaces and widening access. We're doing that, but is that enough? Is that the most we can make out of our privilege? And the third was, what was the third one? There was guilt, there was acceptance of the fact that everybody, yeah, and everybody, oh my god, and everybody after that crowdfunding they just wanted to hide. They didn't want to be in public. Like, I went into hiding. I deleted my Instagram, I deleted everything, because I was like, all eyes are on me.
Hmm.
So there's also
अब
grace.
क्या करती है देखते हैं.
They are, and also, like, I had people who messaged me saying that अभी तक तुम इंडिया वापस नहीं गई,
Hmm.
तुम यहीं हो, तुमने तो कहा था इंडिया वापस जाओगी. So it is very, very complex, I would say. It's not as easy and straightjacketed. As someone who crowdsources money, it's also very difficult for you. Like,
For sure.
every day of your life, you're like, kya kare? I remember this another girl who crowdfunded money. She put in a huge chunk of money in Bridge as a way to like pay back for a scholarship.
Mhm.
That was her way of dealing with the guilt. She's doing her PhD right now in a different country, but I would say like it comes with a lot of guilt. Then what do you? And similarly, like, people who make applications to universities, who write applications to scholarships and make promises, they don't feel the same guilt. We know a lot of cheating scholars who didn't go back to India, who stayed in India, but all eyes are not on them. So I feel
Yeah.
like crowdfunding is not just like that easy. It also comes with a lot of baggage.
Of course, it's putting yourself out there, and then my opinions are still, I would say, very mild. But
Yeah.
people who have strong opinions as well who'd comment on those things,
Oh
saying
my
खुद से क्यों नहीं कर सकती, and I
God.
can imagine
Somebody had sent police to my house.
what.
Yeah, I got a lot of backlash. And that's why I said, like, it messed up my mental health. And because I was in the middle of a crowdfunding, like, I had like gone well into it. And that's why I couldn't have stopped it back then. But I was like, kya karu main ab yahan se? Like police bhi ghar aa gayi. And my parents have also like started to freak out.
Yeah.
They're checking the bonnet of the car. They're checking. And at that point, they didn't, of course, say कि क्यों आए हैं. There was no, they didn't like declare क्यों आए. They were like बस आए हैं. And
Mm.
they no, they also asked because this was 2 years after the COVID. When was this? Uh, 1 year after the COVID. Yeah, when I went. So when they came, they were like, so my brother was in Chennai, and they came and they said, had he come back during the when the COVID wave started? My parents were like, yeah, they came. He came very early on, and they said, no, but you guys haven't declared it. So my parents were like, nobody declared. Like everybody went home. Nobody declared. So but they were like, that's why we are here. We were just checking whether declared it or not, which was like very weird and absurd. So they went around the house. They looked at the garage. They looked at everything, and they were like, hmm. And then they went. So that was like quite. I mean, it was quite intimidating to be very honest with you. And
Sure.
then of course the online trolls and the emails. I got an email saying that I'm taking you to court. I was like, "क्यों भाई मैं तेरा क्या बिगाड़ा?" So I had a back and forth with him, and then everybody asked me to just stop responding to them. But yeah, it was also a lot for my parents to see because I was not wearing hijab in those videos. Like a lot of videos, like interviews came out, and then everybody was cursing my parents. They were like, "Your daughter is not in hijab. You haven't raised her well." And then my parents had to see all of that. My relatives had to see all of that. Some were enjoying, I'm sure, and some were not. But it was a really tough time for everybody. And I'm
Mm.
sure like other friends who also crowd. Oh my god, the other Kashmiri girl, it just was too terrible for her. They pictured her house and this put it on Twitter. They were like, she has a big house. She shouldn't be crowdfunding and all of that. So yeah, it was really bad for all four of us that I know.
Wow. Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have to wear a hijab when you go back?
No, no.
Not anymore.
Sorry?
Not anymore, or were you
No,
like,
I never wore any hijab. I think I was in fourth class when I started wearing hijab in school. I got inspired by some friends. I really enjoyed that period. But I think, yeah, it wore down over a period of time. Yeah.
right?
But my sister does, like on and off. My sister does. She's in Dubai right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. And then, so you didn't get through the Shielding scholarship, you say?
Yeah. So what happened when the waiting period for the from the interview results to the till the time they finally said that you're not in, that's when I
Yeah.
started crowdfunding. So I'd also
Right.
started crowdfunding at a very risky time because what if I got through? What would I do with the money? And how would I send that money back? Because Milap say you can't like send back money.
Yeah.
So I was low key hoping that it doesn't happen. It doesn't come through because of course like that I would be in a much bigger dilemma then.
फिर तो लोग कच्चा चबा जाते हैं.
Yeah. So, yeah, cheating didn't happen then. None of the reserve candidates that year got through. Yeah, but like I said, my department gave me 25% more. So that also helped. I think one more thing that also helped me was that there was this one person from, of course, who's a Britisher. So when he saw my campaign, he said that he could give me free housing. And I was amazed, but my parents were also shocked at the same time. Like, why would you take like such favors from someone? But
Mm.
because I think I still had the teenage hormones running in me at that age, so I was like, no, no, I'll take it up. So I took it up for 1 month. I stayed in that house, but after 1 month, I realized, yeah, itna nahi ho sakta. Like he's also giving me a free house, but he's also paying my bills. I was like, I don't want to do this. I understand like he has some sort of like sentiments towards my place, but this is too much. So the second month I moved out. I was like, नहीं इतना पैसा मैंने raise कर लिया है कि I can afford my own accommodation now. So I was like, I'm really sorry, but I have to move out. So I moved out. But yeah, people supported in all different ways.
Right. And
Yeah.
then you worked in the civil service in the UK for a while. You went back in
Yeah.
India to work with, and then you
Yeah.
came back again. What's that journey like, and what are the
Yeah.
choices you had to make?
So when I started work with UK civil services, I was really excited because I'd just freshly come out of a public policy degree and I couldn't wait to like put everything in action. I joined as a policy advisor to the in the railways department. It's called Department for Transport, and I had the most amazing team ever. My manager, I hadn't seen another manager like her. Like she was a unique one, and she was. It was also the first time she was managing someone. And then I also had a team. Everybody was English. There was no one, not even like no immigrants, no brown person, all white, and me. Um, And then, but the kind of care, the kind of motivation and passion at work was completely different from what I had experienced in India. Like, while they loved their work, but what they loved more was their personal life. They couldn't wait back to go home. And also the kind of values that I witnessed at work were quite different from the values I witnessed in India. For example, my manager's prerogative was to see me grow. So she would make a plan for me every time. She was like, saying, what do you want to learn this month? And I would say, I think my stakeholder management skills are not that great. So can you do anything for me? And she's like, of course, I'm going to come up with a plan. And then she comes up with plan and activities which can help me strengthen that. And then she would score me every quarter more than I expected. Like, she gave me exceeds expectation in every quarter. While I know like that's not the best thing to do, but I was surprised. I was like, how can I be like exceeding expectation in every quarter when I'm not exceeding my own expectation? And then whenever I would doubt myself, she would tell me that, Sahreen, you're the best we have got. And she would like pat my back every time. And she's also given me like awards and all of that. So I was in a very nurturing environment. And it's not that work-wise we were not achieving things. I was put on the best certificate courses. For example, I had the APM management training done. I got the certificate and all of that. So all of that was happening. I was meeting ministers. I was meeting different people, while knowing that my manager and her manager had my back. They knew I was not. It was not easy working with them because, one, I didn't get the accent. I still have a problem getting the accent. So they got me softwares which convert voices, voices into subtitles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would be recorded for me so that, if I wanted to go back to that conversation, I would have that. So they gave me all the facilities possible. But at the same time, I was not enjoying the work. It's not something that I've done in my life. This was a very technical piece, and I've always worked in impact space. This is more of a project management policy delivery in a sector that I'd never worked on. Um, and I was always passionate about education.
Well, the kind of work environment here and that compared to India is so different. Like my manager does not ask me a question if she sees I'm having lunch. And
Yeah,
that's just so thoughtful.
yeah,
And like they force you to get out of office after work
yeah,
hours. Just go. Don't
yeah.
think about work.
I mean,
And
in India, the bar was not. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
I was saying the bar was so not so high in India because I knew what was I going into. I'd worked in India before.
Yeah, that's the thing with organizations that seem so inspiring on the outside.
Yeah.
When in there, fortunately, I've worked with managers that have been wonderful for me, almost all women, and like I've had great relationships and haven't had as much issues. But the last one was very similar, which is why I came here.
Mm.
Was because I was back in India, I was working in an organization that just took the joy out of anyone who worked there. So
Yeah.
everyone quit in that one phase of life.
Yeah.
And I came back here, and that's what you see the drastic, like especially the development sector when you're working towards values like empathy,
Yeah.
compassion, development, and you project all of that outside.
Yeah.
Within the organization, you're treating people like they don't deserve to ever get a compliment. It just
Yeah.
feels so distant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And honestly, like we should be striving towards creating better spaces, especially in India where, we don't have a lot of security at workplace. So as organizations that were built on the foundations of like you said, development and impact, we shouldn't be the ones exploiting our employees. And we shouldn't be like stealing the joy out of them because then at the end of the day, literally like it's just all, I would say, all show and no actions.
Yeah. So generally, in the ones that I've done before, I kept a glass of water beside me today. I forgot, but for branding purposes.
Manzer was actually telling me with a glass सामने रखा. मैं तो चाय पीने जा रही हूँ, glass नहीं
Well, chai mein pani hota hai, that works.
See, money also takes that in.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost like at time now in terms of the things that I want to talk about. I also know that you want to talk about something. Would you like to now?
So I haven't like really prepared anything, but I was actually talking about what anxiety makes you do certain things in life. And this is something I've never faced anxiety before. Of course, like everybody does in different phases in their lives, but the intensity that I witnessed this time was alarming. And the things that it made me do was something that I wanted to reflect and more read on. And not just me, also one of my friends. I'm not going to take her name because I don't think that she'll be comfortable. But I was just able to see how high functioning people with a lot of, I'm not calling myself, I'm just using this for my friend, how high functioning people with a lot of intelligence can undermine themselves because of poor mental health and anxiety. And I say this because, when I was I knew like I didn't have the rest of the support for me. So I would literally not sleep for weeks altogether. I would wake up and I was put on Christmas break. I'm in a Christmas break, 10 days of holidays could have rewired my brain. But because anxiety is so much, I would wake up at night and start crying for no reason. And I know Manzer is also in a similar space. Probably he has a good manager, but because he's able to like he has a better mental health than mine, he's able to manage it better. Like he's able to like put the negative stuff out of the door. For me, that is where I was revolving my life around. What I was revolving my life around. And I see that how women are prone to more anxiety, prone to doubting themselves and having better, worse mental health conditions. Because I told you about this friend who has the best opportunities in the world. Literally, like in my circle, there's no one who's gotten accolades and awards as much as she does. But I see her doubting herself every single day. She calls me every day and she's like, so she's recently secured a scholarship, a very prestigious scholarship. She calls me every day and she's like, what did they take it away from me? That is anxiety. And it's not even funny because she cries so much.
Yeah.
She doesn't, it's going to go away. And recently something very weird happened. So she's an anxious, like throughout, she's a high functioning anxious person. She she feels that there are certain spots in her body that feel pain. She goes to the doctor, and the doctor tells her there's nothing wrong with you. Everything's perfect. Why don't you get these tests done? She gets tests done, and she realizes that certain vitamins in her body are, I mean, they're below the level. Vitamin D, vitamin B, all that. And then she thinks of them as a disease. She calls me. She's like, मैं बीमार हो गई हूँ, and I don't know what to do now. मैं आ पाऊंगी क्या, like this new event in her life? Will I be able to like get onto that? And I'm like, this is just vitamin deficiency. And she cries. She goes on crying. She orders for medicine. She orders for injection. She gets injected. These are the most expensive medicines out there. And then she finds a small fault with the medicine, and then she's like, oh, I'm gonna die. The medicine's spelling it a little bit. She's like, I'm gonna die. And then she spirals so much that she puts it out on all the social media. She's like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. And then when everything settles, when the storm settles, she realizes what stupidity that was. She wasted a week or two in her life doubting herself, and actually nothing was wrong. So that's also something that happened here to me. Like I doubted myself so much because of the anxiety. My manager once told me that one of my documents did not have a full stop somewhere. And I doubted myself so much. I remember I wrote a letter, I had to write a letter to a bureaucrat. I remember sending it to my friends. And I was like, can you give it a read? And my friends were like, this is perfectly okay. And I was like, no. As an Oxford graduate, as somebody who studied at convent, who knows like sufficient English to write a good letter? And then there are like so many grammar correcting platforms. I did not trust myself because of that anxiety. And I feel this anxiety is induced in you. Is what I was trying to get at. This is not something that you're born with. Of course, like your genes do play a role in like your mental health conditions. But as women, because you're brought up in certain conditions, you're made to believe that it's you. It's your problem. For example, my friend and I share similar circumstances. While growing up, we were told that your decisions are not yours to take; they're somebody else's to take. And then right now, like even at this stage when I'm 33, whenever I have to take a decision, it's never mine alone. I always tend to ask my different people because my anxiety gets to me, and it always tells me that I'm making the wrong decision. So I go to my father, I go to my mother-in-law, I go to my mother, I go to my husband, I go to my friends. I collate all the information, and then I'm like, okay, this is the decision I need to make. And this is also with my friend. So no matter like where you're in life, and also like people see me as someone like, she talks about a lot of agency, a lot of freedom, and she's also happy. She knows how to make decisions. That's not the point. As women, we've been conditioned to believe that you can't make your own decisions, and also like you've been allowed to doubt yourself to such an extent while growing up that you still can't, like you're still not proud of the decisions you make. Like you're still not capable of making decisions for yourself, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And this is how I also like reflect between, like this is the distinction I can make between Manzer making decision and I'm making decision. I've been a lot more rebellious than Manzer. I've been in circumstances where I had to fight a lot as compared to Manzer. But I see that decision making for him is so easy. And for me, decision making is like so difficult, and I have to like get approved from like 20 other people. And he's like, why do you give a shit? And I was like, no, I do, because all these people. And none of those people mean like dearly to me, but all these people. So what I was trying to get at was these feelings induce anxiety, and this is common between me and all the other girlfriends. And as a result of which, like we witness high functioning daily anxiety, which prevents us from making decisions or prevents us from sharing spaces with people. I mean, we do like eventually end up in those places, but then it's not more difficult for us to get into those spaces because, like they say, a man's confidence is very different from a woman's confidence. So we have to go with all that baggage and all that struggle to make that decision. So I blabbered, and this is also like very haphazard.
No, it's very important what you're saying, and very interesting because I haven't thought about anxiety being induced. Like I understand the taking away of autonomy of decisions for women and all the things that come with being a woman in a conservative society, especially. But yeah, it's just so difficult to imagine the kind of things that happen to people, and the result of them show in such different ways that when there are things like, oh, will they take this scholarship away from me?
Yeah.
A normal person would laugh at it.
Yeah.
But and we often laugh at things that seem futile in that sense, and the fact that the person with that anxiety also recognizes it as a futile thing, and they have the guilt of being anxious about something that doesn't exist as well.
Yeah.
So it's just so difficult to be in a space where you're constantly being questioned, and then as a result you start questioning yourself, and there's no one solution to it. It's very systemic. And some of it comes from you, a lot of it comes from your environment. I've been in the mental space for a long time, and I've realized that no anxiety is the same. Like there's no one cure that you can have. And I think it takes years of therapy, self-work, and constantly re-questioning the doubts that you get to get to a stable place. Yet your surroundings don't allow you to heal as often or as much as you possibly could. So beyond anxiety, I think it's the role of people around you to just normalize things. And I observe myself chuckling when you said, will they take this scholarship away from me? Because it sounds funny. And then when you really think of it, or when you're with someone when you understand their feelings, that is when you normalize it as a valid thought to have. Lazmi hai aisa, but कैसे उसको eventually we can say कि this won't happen, and when it does not happen, then it further strengthens your belief.
And I think I also like saw a show very recently. I don't remember the name of the show. It's on Netflix. It's basically a cookery. I wouldn't call it cookery. It's a chef competition for Langham Hotel in London.
Oh yeah, I heard of it.
Yeah, so there are a bunch of chefs. One of the chefs is an Asian immigrant, I think born and brought up in the US or in the UK. But anyway, she had Asian parents. So after every episode, because they kind of like go back to every chef and they're like, how was your journey today? How do you think you performed today? So everybody had great things to say. Aaj dessert aisa bana. She would say, she said it thrice in the whole series. She would say, I think today my parents are finally going to be proud of me. And then the last when she loses, she says, and she was like in her 30s, late 30s, she says, oh, you know what? I thought that, like I was getting closer to my parents, finally, like being proud of me. They would finally say that art made it, but I think like I'm back to square one. And so like she would have said like so many different things in the episode. This is how I made the cream. This is how I made this. But all that she chooses to focus on is that one thing that went wrong in her life, which made her to believe that she's not good enough. So I would say anxiety also like works like that. No matter you have like 1,000 different good things in front of you, that one thing, it fixates you on that one thought, and then you feel you're just not good enough. So for people to think that like people in these like prestigious institutes, whether they're workplaces or academic spaces, have it easy, I would say no. Like they have it very, very tough. And also, my friends and I were also discussing that knowledge is also a vice. Knowledge is not always virtue. The more knowledge you have, the more you know that how wrongly you've been treated. And then because of that, you always like kind of question yourself, and you always make yourself believe that you're not good enough. For example, my civil services checks were ongoing, and they were the longest checks. They went on for 3 months, and every day of that check, I have been like, they're going to reject me. They were like, give us your right to work. I gave my BRB. Like this is so straight-jacketed, isn't it? Before I would have been like, Auntie, right to work, ho gaya, BRB de ho gaya. I've written 1,000 emails to them. Oh, is it done? Would this qualify? And they're like, you need to calm down. And that was the first time somebody said you need to calm down. And I realized this is my anxiety. Like, why am I doubting? I have all the documents. And so much so somebody also said to me, "Tadi paar karke aaye ho, kya tu itna dar rahe ho?" I was like, "Such a yaar." I mean, why would I doubt myself? But it was the first time that I had such a close face off with anxiety, and I realized that it's not me; it's probably my environment, because I also see like other people around me. For example, like I said, I'm very rebellious, right? So all the rebellions that I've made, I've always had self-doubt. I've always come back saying that, oh, this is probably not the best thing I should have said. This is not what I should have said. I shouldn't have stood up for this. But I see my other friends like who stand up for example, causes like Palestine and other things. They're like, no, head on. Like, this is what we believe in. I don't even know at the end of the day what do I believe in, because anxiety, you know?
Right.
And true for my friends also, play safe all the time, because they also want to like appease to all the people, want to be in everybody's good books. So women are also taught that. So yeah, anxiety also leads to that. There's a lot of haphazard thought and a lot of blabbering. I don't know how you can structure
I
it.
appreciate it. I think these are important conversations that need to happen in all kinds of settings. And there's so many factors that affect where you are, how you feel. कि ऐसे कोई एक चीज पे काम करने से नहीं होगा. I think they need to become a part of regular average conversations is when things like these hopefully get a little better.
Yeah.
I think what people generally don't realize is कि I think a fallacy that humans have is that they think everyone else is like them.
Yeah.
And even though in some sense we are, yet there are so many things that make up a person. कि I can't base your anxiety levels on the basis of the things that have happened to me. I think that's where we need to enter a conversation with more open.
Actually, interesting, because I actually believe the other way around. I believe that not all humans are same, and that's why I am the way I am. And that's why, like, I feel that, you know, I really wish to be someone else sometimes. And like, oh, it would have been great if I had like no, I mean, there were no times in my life when I would help myself. And I also want to like have that male confidence and say that, "Nahi, jo main kar rahi hu, head on." I mean, and that's why I feel like, and I see how childhood actually like contributes to that. Like different childhood contributes to adults growing differently. So yeah, like I see that, you know, how humans are different from each other, and how it's a privilege to be someone with more confidence and more autonomy. And for example, you met Kanika, right? You see like how confident and exactly. And I've gone to her house. And I also know Manzer, who's very energetic, like capable of making his own decisions. And like he's so chirpy and like gets along with people so well. And I know, like, I've been to his house. I know why it's like that. And then I also know like these other friends of mine who are like me, and I know like what's happening in the houses. So it's also very important to see like, and there's also very important. It's also very important to not just entertain one kind of, not make role models out of one kind of humans, because for every, you should also like this kind of privilege that comes with that. For example, if you're chirpy, you're an extrovert, you know, make your decisions only in public. It's a lot of privilege as well. Yeah, nothing holding you back.
मुझे तो लगता है पेरेंट्स के ऐसे एंट्रेंस एग्जाम्स होने चाहिए before they're allowed to have children.
Societies के लिए यार, I mean,
I can't imagine. My parents were 18 and 20, less than 18 and 21 when they had their first child, and I'm 28 now. I can't imagine raising a child at this age.
Yeah, I know.
पता नहीं कैसे वो, मतलब इस उम्र में, मेरी उम्र में उनके 2 बच्चे थे जो बड़े हो गए थे. I don't know. And
conditioned.
Yeah. And we like everyone's just having their way through life.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I was reading this yesterday. It's also their first chance at being a parent, so they don't know whether they're doing it right or wrong. They're doing their best, but it's also like their first and their last chances.
Do you want to be a parent?
So, because of this thought, because I know like parenting is not easy. I mean, finances is a separate thing. Like having a proper finance pool or a pot for your child is a separate thing, and I'm not getting into that. I think that's a ban jayega agar banane pe aayenge. What I feel is that, am I capable of being a good mother? Am I capable of being a good parent? I would say no. And is Manzer capable of being a good father? At this stage, I would say no. I mean, he has all the love to give to the world. I have all the love to give to the world, but that love does not come with accountability and, you know, sacrifices. That is when we decide to give out love to the world, right? There is going to be this human that would need constant attention from us, 24/7. Do we have that capacity? We don't have that capacity. Do I know how to nurture, how to like bring up a life? I don't. People say you learn along the way. I don't learn along the way. Like, your child is not an experiment, right? So until and unless like, both of us are like 100% sure that we want to go into this and we can sacrifice careers to a little extent and then get into this, because you can't make space for both together. Of course, you can make space for both together. That's not what I'm suggesting. I think you'll have to sacrifice like parts of your life. You'll have to sacrifice some friendships. You'll have to sacrifice a little bit of your career, and then you're able to like raise that child. But yes, I'm fascinated with the idea that the kind of wisdom and the kind of teachings that I can pass on to an offspring, and how different is that going to make that person. I'm fascinated with that thought. Like sometimes I think that my parents had me and my other siblings without a lot of thought, and because of that, we just random 3 children. But I'm fascinated with the thought, like if you like make a plan around it, if you like strategize around it, and then have those values passed on, I'm really interested in seeing what that can lead to. But right now, I don't see myself doing that. It's difficult.
In your own time, hopefully.
Yeah.
We're at the end now. When I started the idea, I thought I'd do like a similar thing, that how people engage with celebrities, and then I talk to normal people as if they were celebrities. But I feel like that's not who I am. It would be a lot of acting, rapid fire and fun questions. I think I enjoy a natural conversation much more.
Yeah. No,
मुझे बस एक और सवाल था, which might be stupid. But so जैसे what language do you speak in Kashmir?
I speak Urdu and Kashmiri.
Right. And then do people, जैसे काफी नॉर्थ इंडिया में जैसे भैया बुलाते हैं लोगों को, do people call each other भाईजान?
Bhaiya. So we've had a lot of Hindi influence because of Bollywood.
Right.
So my in-laws were really surprised that my sister called me Didi, because Muslims in India usually call each other an elder sister Api.
Yeah.
They're like, you have a lot of like Hindu influence, and we do. Like, our food patterns are also very similar to Kashmiri Pandits.
Right.
Yeah.
बस ये पूछना था.
Is there anything that we're leaving? I can't. I'm
sure there'd be so much.
Sorry?
I'm sure there'd be so much that we haven't talked about.
Yeah. And also, like, this is what my fear was. The conversation is going to go in a direction where it will be a lot about marriage and family, and that's what happened. That was my fear. I was like, "Ye mujhe nahi karna hai."
Well, if you told me before, then we could have skipped those bits.
No, but I also feel that the things that I want to talk about are very, I would say like that they can get a lot of flack, but I don't see कि मेरी जिंदगी कैसे आसान हो जाएगी उस चीज के साथ. So I don't.
This podcast currently has 0 viewers. so there's
no that catches fire.
Maybe this is my way of catching fire. क्या बोली कश्मीरी महिला इंडिया के बारे में?
Oh my God.
But no, it's been so wonderful talking to you. पता नहीं कैसे 1.5 घंटा निकल गया.
Yeah, same. I think I would have loved to talk about the rebellions with my parents, because I think like women would would be able to relate to that more. But मुझे लगता है कभी और करते हैं फिर. Like अगर we there's so much.
I'm sure we can do an extended version and then more. I think
Yeah, so I was saying, like, for example, the most significant part of my life was moving out of Kashmir. That was the most difficult part because I ran away from my home.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's what I did not discuss, but let's do it some other time. And I am also moving to London on the 2nd. Are you going to be around?
Yeah, I'm here for a while.
आप जा रहे हो इंडिया वापस?
पता नहीं क्या ही हो रहा है मेरी लाइफ में अभी तो नहीं जा रहा
अच्छा, फिर मैंने जीरो ग्रेजुएट वीजा।
आई एम ऑन स्पॉन्सर वीजा
ओह रियली?
हां
फिर भी जाना है? वैसे मैं भी ऐसी थी, जाना है।
इंडिया जाना है मेरा मन तो इंडिया में लगता है
कोई नहीं, जाओ, मेरा भी लगा था।
एक्चुअली वही सेम चीज मेरे साथ हुई कि मैंने बोला मुझे इंडिया जाना है मेरा मन गया फिर मेरा मन नहीं लगा तो मैं वापस आ गया
अच्छा, ऐसा हुआ?
हां दैट्स व्हाट आई टोल्ड यू नो द वर्कप्लेस आई वाज वर्किंग वाज सो टॉक्सिक कि मैंने
Oh,
छोड़ दिया
okay.
yeah so I went to India I then came back so I came back in September अभी last year
अच्छा, okay. And how long did you work in India?
I went back in January तब से मैंने
That was same me, like I was there for 7 months. But when I went back on vacation, I went with a lot of thought. मैंने proper strategize किया, pros and cons. And मैंने pros में ये भी था कि auto भी चाहिए, Uber भी चाहिए.
that's true
इतना romanticize किया था ना to that level कि when I went back this time, I did not have the time to take Uber and auto. I did not have the time. मेरे पास सिर्फ time था काम करने का. And now when I've come back, like anybody tells me India वापस जाने वाली 2 गाली तो उसको पड़ती है. So think about it.
ऐसे बहुत ग्लॉसी ग्लॉसी लगता है इंडिया जाएंगे कोई खाना बनाएगा तुम्हारे लिए बैठेंगे सारे काम करते
I did not even have the time to hire a maid. I was like, भाई time किसके पास है? अब helper के साथ coordinate करो. अच्छा दीदी सुबह कितने बजे जाएंगी, शाम को कितने बजे जाएंगी, कब होगा ये? So I was like, I can't. So yeah, a journalist friend of mine from Oxford, she also met me the other day and she also was like, यार इंडिया वापस जाना है, मैंने मिंट में काम किया, इसमें काम किया. फिर मैंने उसको thank you so much. It was very back. Yeah, but anyway, ठीक है, let's meet sometime then.
हां मैं क्यों
ठीक है, I will be there in June and also like less communities also.
हां मैं कुछ सर्विस कर
Yeah, I will do something.
yes yes important
ठीक है, thank you so much for this podcast.
yeah that's okay so to can be asked yes yes you told me yes
He's very smart and he is also new confidence talking about. He has a lot of confidence. He's anything. He's he's good. I don't know if he's he actually does. So I met him years ago. He was to us and he's my friend and I wanted to actually talk about and he worked on this in Hashtag which is to and then that's when I was in some management there. That's when the bond started growing. And then he moved to Oxford. He did a reservation from Oxford. I had a space myself for a week, so he stayed in the reservation there. And then he manifested himself fully in Oxford. The rest of the work is he is a manager with Oxford University Development. But not in professional, he's good in he's trained at every time. He's like he's good at talking, good with words. So he's and when he came to Oxford, then I was like, my all people in communities, like this is a big peaceful place. I don't know if but yeah, I think we really he's written a lot of chapters in book. Every interesting to see him knowledge on various different things happening in politics and various things. So very interesting. And yeah, also I really special things on also I mean like not seen anyone that and the only man of my life who's like this on the face in Oxford. Yeah, and that's why I want to speak English.
that's what
Yeah, thank you.
okay
Yeah, bye.